My Lord and my God, I firmly believe that you're here, that you see me, that you hear me. I adore you with profound reverence. I ask your pardon for my sins and the grace to make this time of prayer fruitful. My Immaculate Mother, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me. A few months ago, I ran a pretty long race. It's called an ultra marathon. This one, ultra marathon, is pretty much any race that is over the official marathon distance. So anything over 26.2 miles. The one I ran was a 50 miler. Very beautiful race out there in a state park, all trails, beautiful day, beautiful scenery. But obviously, to run an ultramarathon, you need to train quite a bit. You need to run quite a bit for quite a bit of months before the race, as you can imagine. So when I first signed up for this race, I was pretty excited. I was kind of nervous. I had run many marathons in my life, but never something as long as 50 miles, obviously, as you can imagine. And so I told my running pal, my running friend, the guy that we usually run with together, we train together, and I told him, hey, I signed up for this race. Why don't we train for it together? And this guy was pretty cocky. He said, sure, let's run it. And he signed up with me. But weeks went by, months went by. I started training really seriously, and this guy never really came to any of the trainings. And so he went and ran a couple of miles, and then went and ran again for a few miles, and then he got injured, and he wasn't eating right. He wasn't really doing anything of the things I told him he had to do. So after a while, I kind of sat down and talked to him and said, listen, I don't think this is a good idea. But I said, no, don't worry. I've been running my whole life. I've done long races. I'll be fine. To the day came for the race, and we were both there early in the morning, nervous, and we start running together. And of course, this guy, after a couple of miles, 5-6 miles, he said, listen, you know what? You keep going at your own pace. I'll keep going on mine. And he barely made it to mile 25, and he was almost dying by the end of mile 25. And so the guy just didn't finish the race. He retired. That is what we call presumption. And I bring this up because there is a sin of presumption that has to do with hope. It's like an excess of hope. Not in hope, obviously, it's not a very good virtue. But if you think that God is going to save me anyways, then you are sinning of presumption. And this is precisely what Jesus tells us today in the gospel. He says, not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only the one who does the will of my Father in heaven. Not everyone who says, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven. This is not what you hear out there sometimes. Some people that think, well, God is merciful. He's so good. He would never let us go to hell. And these people just live their lives without making much of an effort to do God's will. And it is true. God is merciful. God is all love. He's a loving Father. But He is just. St. Augustine has this beautiful line who says, God, who created you without you, will not save you without you. God gave us freedom. God gave us grace so that we could use our freedom well, so that we could do the will of His Father in heaven. But then it's up to us to do that will too. Take that grace and make something out of it. It's not like we can earn heaven. It's not like we have to earn heaven and we have to muscle our way into heaven. by doing the right things. Obviously, we need faith. We need to believe in God. Everything we do in life, it's not going to take us to heaven. But we need to prove in a way that we want to go to heaven. How do we prove that? Precisely what Jesus tells us. He who does the will of my Father in heaven. It's not enough just to say, Lord, Lord. It's not enough just to believe in God and say and profess publicly that I believe in God and I love God. But then I don't really put him in the first place. Jesus continues in today's gospel. Many will say to me on that day, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name? Did we not drive out demons in your name? Did we not do mighty deeds in your name? Then I will declare to them solemnly, says Jesus, I never knew you. Depart from me, you evildoers. These words might sound a little bit rough, but it's good. It's a good warning from Jesus for each one of us. It's like a wake-up call. Reminder that it's not enough to just do stuff for Jesus. Oh, I was an altar boy when I was growing up. Oh, I taught some catechism classes. Oh, I went to Mass every Sunday. Sometimes we feel justified. Sometimes we feel like that's good enough. Well, it's not. Sorry to tell you that. It's not. I'm sorry. Jesus is telling you that. And we need to take this warning and build our house on rock, as Jesus tells us. Everyone who listens to these words of mine and acts on them will be like a wise man who built his house on rock. The rain fell, the floods came, and the winds blew and buffeted the house, but it did not collapse. It had been set solidly on rock. We have that opportunity. We are listening to God's words. We can put this into action and say, and ask ourselves, each one of us, am I building my spiritual house on rock? Or is my house built on sand? Jesus continues saying, well, those who build their house on sand, the rain will fall, the floods will come, and the wind will blow and buffet the house, and it will collapse and completely ruin itself. Where are we building our house? What kind of surface? The surface is defined pretty much by our deeds. Yes, our faith, of course, our love of God, but that love has to be manifested in deeds, in specific things. I remember this joke. I don't know if it's kind of offensive, but I've always liked it because I like coffee. This joke of these newly wedded couple, and the wife, very excited, goes and prepares coffee for her husband, and then she brings the coffee in the morning, and she says, honey, here is the coffee. You can turn this around and do it the other way around, right? Obviously. And so he or she tries the coffee and spits it out, and it's like, oh, this is disgusting. And so the wife or the husband says, but honey, I prepared it with all my love. And then the other person says, well, next time, please prepare it with a little bit less of love and put a little bit more of coffee. And maybe that's what God is sometimes telling us. Hey, don't tell me you love me too much. Try to show me that love with your actions. Try to show me that love with your life, with what you do and what you avoid doing. That is how we build our house on rock, doing God's will, reading the Gospels, reading his teachings, his magisterium, and putting that into practice into our life, living the virtues, living those commandments that God left for us. It is very clear. The will of God is out there. We have all the elements we need, all the material we need to build our house on a good foundation, and that foundation made out of rock, solid, that nothing will bring down our house, no matter how many temptations, no matter how many difficulties and contradictions. If we do God's will, then yes, he will be merciful, and he will forgive our sins and all our weaknesses. I thank you, my God, for the good resolutions, affections, and inspirations that you have communicated to me in this meditation. I ask your help to put them into effect. My Immaculate Mother, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, guardian angel, intercede for me.